All right, stand by me. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the office of the Minnesota Attorney General's office. Today, I have an important announcement regarding a settlement with Comcast. You know, usually when you sign up for a service, you expect some basic things. You expect to know the full cost of what you're signing up for. You expect to get what you were promised. You expect not to be charged for things you did not ask for. And you expect not to be charged to get rid of things that you didn't ask for. That's 3 negatives right there. It's hard to pay your bills, get ahead, and afford your life if any of these things don't happen. For folks who signed up with Comcast, these things did not happen. Comcast hid the full price that people had to pay. Comcast promised gift cards as a perk for signing up that they never delivered. Comcast charged customers for equipment and services that customers never signed up for. Then they charged those customers termination fees when they wanted to get out from under the equipment and services that they never signed up for. You know, even worse, those termination fees were reported to credit agencies, which messed up customers' credit. You're going to hear from one such person today, and made it even harder for them to afford their lives. These practices are why in December of 2018, the Attorney General's office sued Comcast, Xfinity, whatever they're calling themselves. And I just want to say a special thanks to my predecessor, Lori Swanson, for filing this lawsuit. Lori and I are unique from each other in many ways, but we have one thing in common: we believe in consumer protection, and I'm proud to carry on that tradition. Today I'm announcing that relief for Comcast customers is on its way. The Attorney General's office has settled this lawsuit with Comcast. It will bring millions of dollars of relief in a form of refunds and debt relief to more than 30,000 customers in the state of Minnesota. In refunds, 15,600 customers will get refunds totaling about 1.3 million. And in debt relief, about 16,000 customers will get the benefit of debt relief that is worth millions. The settlement also requires Comcast to change their advertising and marketing practices to disclose the full price that you will be charged for their services on going forward, and this will bring relief to Minnesotans who are shopping for service. And I want to tell you a little bit more about why this is significant, because it really is. In 2016, the Federal Communications Commission and Comcast entered into a consent decree based on Comcast's bad behavior that fundamentally overhauled Comcast's business practices. That was a good thing, and it made a difference across our country. In Minnesota, we've improved on that in a number of ways. First, the FCC consent decree had no restitution for customers. We've got that here in Minnesota. Second, we've improved on FCC's terms and made them better for Minnesota customers. Minnesota consumers now have even more guarantees that they will get what they were promised at a price they were promised and won't be charged or held accountable for services they didn't ask for. And we've incorporated the terms of the FCC consent decree into our settlement, and that means they're now enforceable by the state as well as by the federal government. And now we have teeth in there to hold Comcast accountable for all these changes if they don't live up to their end of the bargain. And I hereby promise that if they don't live up to their end of the bargain, we will be back addressing them immediately. And now I want to ask Assistant Attorney General Catherine Kelly to walk you through the details. But before I hand it over to Catherine, let me just say that among the things that I'm proud of in my whole life is to work with these folks at the Attorney General's office. Catherine Kelly, her team, Nina Grove, where's Nina? There she is. And her team, and where's James Kennedy back there? Come on over here, James. Just wave at the folks, James, please. Yeah, and Jason Plagenkugel. James, this team is awesome. They are fighters. They believe in the public interest, and they never, ever give up, and I'm so proud to work with them. And with that, let me invite Assistant Attorney General Catherine Kelly to walk through the details of the settlement. Catherine, you got the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. So, in the settlement document, there are certain terms that Comcast has agreed to abide by and some relief that they're giving to consumers. Very high level, they consist of monetary payment back to consumers. So around 15,000 Minnesota customers, current and former, doesn't matter if they're still with Comcast, they'll still get a refund, are going to get refunds. We've identified certain categories of customers that will get those refunds, and we've outlined it here. It's also in the press release. So the first category is Comcast would promise a Visa prepaid gift card ranging in dollar amount for anyone who agreed to a long-term contract. It was their incentive, their way of tying you up. We had a large swath of consumers who'd never received those gift cards. So in the settlement, Comcast is sending out refund checks to those consumers. They've already been identified, and Comcast will send out that information. The second category of Minnesotans who are going to get relief under our settlement is if you had a cable package that included internet, you had a double play, maybe a triple play, and you had a modem and you were paying for it and you returned it within 3 months, all your modem fees are being reimbursed and sent back to you. That's because our case alleged that Comcast was adding services and equipment that people didn't request, including modems. The third category of customers that are going to get relief in the form of a refund check are those who paid an early termination fee. So when you enroll in Comcast services and you agree to a contract, they'll charge you to break that contract if you want to leave after 6 months. Well, we were seeing consumers who were promised one price, agreed to pay that price for 2 years, but 6 months in, it crept up. You know, $1 here, $1 there, it adds up. All of a sudden, you're paying $20, $30 more. We were finding consumers who would just cancel. They'd say, I'm not going to pay this anymore. You're not holding up your end of the bargain. I'm not going to pay mine. Comcast then charged them an early termination fee. So for consumers that fit in that specific criteria, they are going to get a refund of money that they paid. So like I said, Comcast is going to be sending out these refunds. So they already have identified who their subscribers are. We were not told who the subscribers are. Comcast's position is that they're not allowed to tell the Minnesota office, the AG's office, who they are, but they've certified to us who they are going to give checks to, and they are going to do the process. It's important that people who get a communication from Comcast open their letter, open their email. There might be a claim form in there, and they should open that and not be afraid. In addition to providing that money back to consumers, Comcast is also writing a check to the state of Minnesota for $160,000. In addition to cash back in people's pockets, Comcast is also wiping clean the debt that it has carried on its books and put on consumers' credit reports. Approximately 16,000 former customers of Comcast were charged an early termination fee, but they didn't pay it. They either didn't believe they should, and so they refused, or perhaps they couldn't afford it. That debt then went to the collection bureaus to be collected upon, and it also went on people's credit report. Comcast is wiping clean that debt and repairing those people's credits. So that's the relief for consumers in the past, but going forward, the changes that the Attorney General mentioned are they have to modify some of their advertising practices. So in addition to telling you what price that they're going to charge, if they're going to add more fees on, they have to clearly and conspicuously disclose what those fees are and how much they're going to be. Like the Attorney General said, our settlement builds upon the federal settlement, so we took their reform and just added to it. We can enforce our settlement through the courts. It's a legally binding agreement, and we'll be monitoring them to make sure they comply with it. Consumers who want to reach out to us and tell them that this happened to them, or we should be looking into something else, or they want to tell their story, are welcome to contact our office. We have a link on our website where they can fill out their information to get more information. It's in the press release as well, the hyperlink. We also have a phone number. We encourage anyone who's ever had anything happen to them where they were charged something that they didn't agree with, or enrolled in services they didn't agree with, regardless of who it is, that they file a complaint with our office online. Thank you.
Catherine, thank you so much. I want to thank you for your excellent work and your whole team, okay? And let me just say that my biggest fear is that there are people who Comcast has treated unfairly, who might, who Comcast, if they don't fulfill their obligations, and we'll never know. Because of our debate around the application of the Cable Act, you know, that it makes it difficult for us to have a list of everybody who should get relief. So we need people to contact us if they even think that Comcast is supposed to pay them. We want them to call us, and then we will deal with Comcast, but we need folks to help us out. And let me just tell you, the public communication part of this settlement, which we're doing at this very moment, is equally important to the actual negotiation in the room. Because people knowing that we have this settlement with Comcast and contacting us is going to help us make sure that Comcast does what it has promised to do. And they don't have a great record of doing that. So we want to make sure that people reach out to us. So as Catherine told me and reminded me, go online. Did I say it right, Catherine? Go online if you think Comcast owes you money or needs to give you debt relief, or you can call too. But be in touch with us, and that's really important. Now, like I said, it's hard to afford your life when companies hide the true cost of their services to you, then don't deliver what they promise, and overcharge you for the services that you didn't ask for. But when that happens, it's hard to live with dignity and respect, and you can feel isolated and alone, and the people trying to take advantage of you hope you feel isolated and alone, and that there's nothing you can do. But 4 courageous people called us and said, I am not going to put up with this. I am not going to just take this. And they called and they got something out of it. Without them, we could not possibly be here to fight for everybody else. In many ways, hats off to the 4 folks who called us and helped us move this case forward, because without you, we really wouldn't have plaintiffs to fight for. And so thank you very much. I want to give them now a chance to share their stories. Some are a little shy because they don't come in front of TV cameras every day. And so just want to see if, I know Gail is willing to tell her story. So Gail, come on up. And then I think Russ is willing to tell his story, and Barb's willing to tell. So anybody else after that who wants to, we want to encourage them to feel free. So let's start with you, Gail. Come on up.
Good morning. I moved and transferred my service and was charged an early termination fee, and they sent it to my credit bureau, and it affected my credit score. It dropped 100 points, and I wasn't able to secure a mortgage, and so I had to work to get that off to secure my mortgage like 4 months later. But in the meantime, I was renting, and I went month to month, and my rent was $1,700 for month-to-month service until I moved.
So this really cost you a lot of money.
It did.
When they did that.
It did.
Okay. Well, thank you for telling your story, Gail.
Spell your name for us?
Yeah.
Gail, G-A-I-L.
Gail Jackson of Minneapolis.
Jackson of Minneapolis, yes. Thanks.
All right, next up, Russ Beebe of Lake Elmo.
Hi, I'm Russ. My story really started here with the State Attorney General's office 5 years ago next month, when I finally wrote a letter on paper, put it in a real envelope, put a real postage stamp on it, and sent it to Comcast in Philadelphia with a copy here to the State Attorney General's office. So that was after many years of really fraud, deception, stealing, bad billing, so on and so forth. And it was really, I just focused in on the latest situation at that point, which was not a lot of money, but just to correct the bill. So that's when it started happening, and I got involved in just with the State Attorney General's office, and I'm very happy that it's got to this point today where they've settled things, because the bad billing and so on and so forth was not acceptable. So, anything else?
No, Russ, great job.
Can I ask
All right.
really quickly, do you have any idea about what you're expecting back from Comcast? I mean, in terms of a dollar amount?
I have absolutely no idea.
It's not thousands, is it hundreds of dollars?
I have absolutely no idea. I know my mom's very thankful, my friends and some other people are happy that we'll be settling. I'm sure. I have no idea what's coming other than what you've just heard. So, yeah.
Will you spell your last name?
It's B-E-E-B-E.
Like the Viking.
Absolutely.
Chad Beebe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now Barb Laporte of St. Paul. Go for it, Barb.
Laporte, lowercase p, all one word.
So I think the thing that I've learned from this experience is, number one, if you have an issue with a company that you think is being dishonest or fraudulent, we may say,
Yes.
I think the best thing you can do is contact the Attorney General's office. I was a little bit shy about doing that, but I'm really glad that I did, and I'm really glad that you carried the ball from Attorney General Lori Swanson, because it has really, I think the monetary amount is it's kind of a beside the point situation. What really matters to us, I think, and I think I speak for all of us, is that they are being held accountable, and they have to know that there are consequences when you're dishonest with your consumer. So that would be my number one lesson, and my number two lesson would be that if you sign up for automatic payment, check your bank statement, because that creep thing that they talk about, it was just a few dollars a month, but I didn't even notice it. And it was the Attorney General's office that told me that I was getting charged more than I had agreed to be charged. I didn't even know. So that's bad on me, but yeah, if you sign up for automatic payment, make sure you check your statements. So thank you for following up with this.
Thank you. And I just want to say, look, when they agreed to a price and you agreed to automatic payment, you agreed at a certain price.
I did.
It shouldn't be on you to make sure somebody's not stealing from you. And so they are in the wrong, and we're glad that we helped you put a stop to it.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? No. Okay. Well, let me just tell you, the courageous group up here is 4 folks. One of them doesn't want to say anything, which is fine. They were courageous enough to call us and tell us and hold Comcast accountable, and that's all the courage that we need. So I just want to say, as I wrap up again, in the Attorney General's office, it's hard to know when people are being defrauded unless people call us and tell us. We need to be in cooperation with the public, which is why this particular press conference is so important. Let me just say, I'd like you to do a few things, and I'm talking to the public now. If you've been promised one price for goods and service and then been surprised with a higher one, we need you to call us. If you've been promised a good or service that you didn't get, call us. And if you've been charged for goods or services you didn't ask for, call us. If you think that Comcast owes you debt relief, call us. We need to be in touch with the public on this to make sure this settlement is real and meaningful. And I just want to say, too, as I wrap up, we've already done a podcast on the terms of the settlement. It's starring Catherine Kelly. And the podcast is going to go live, Chanel, today. And so, what? It's already up. So if you missed anything we said here, the podcast, Affording Your Life, which you can get anywhere you get a podcast, you can just download that and listen to the terms. And call us, and also contact us online, and we're here to help enforce the consumer law. So with that, I'll leave the questions to you guys.
Just in terms of accessing this podcast, Attorney General's website, that'll direct you to it? Or
Chanel, how do you get to the podcast? Come on over here and tell everybody.
The podcast is streaming on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, all the major podcast platforms. And then you can also go to our website, and there's a link on the front page.
Okay, so AG's website is probably pretty good. Even if you type into the search box Comcast settlement or something like that, it would direct them to information about
Affording Your Life.
When folks should call you and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. If
With
you
radio, we can't give the link, I can't read it on air.
Okay.
Yeah, so just front page of the
Front page of the website?
Good.
Yep, great. Any other questions?
Mr. Attorney General, it seems, again, not knowing the figures, it seems like this whole rigmarole is such a small percentage of their revenue stream when you talk about their subscriptions rates for these bundles. Get in the mindset of why? I mean, what could possibly be the benefit to these companies of trying to get nickel and, it sounds like nickel and dime.
Greed. I mean, look, if you defraud thousands of people, even for a little bit amount of money, it adds up to a lot of money for an individual, right? So if I could rip off 5.6 million people in Minnesota for a penny a day, I'd end up rich at the end of the year. So that it actually is has a very powerful cumulative effect. And then the other thing is that they also just want to beat out their competitors. They use the dishonesty that they employ to create a monopoly for themselves. One of the things that we're trying to do here is not just only be fair to our consumers, but to be fair to other businesses who are operating honestly. We have overwhelming number of our businesses in Minnesota, overwhelming number are honest. But if you let corruption and dishonesty and fraud go unchallenged, then fair people will say, well, how can we compete unless we do what those bad guys are doing? And if you want an example of how that happened, look at the mortgage crisis of 2008. That's just no enforcement, and then you had good people going bad because everybody's doing subprime lending. How can we stay in business and not do it? And so we want to keep good businesses good. So that's why we jumped in, and thanks for that good question.
Mr. Attorney General, who is responsible, other than the Attorney General's office, in this settlement for monitoring? Is it the PUC or is it the Commerce Department in terms of being sure the state law is compliant? I'm talking about
the consumer law. Well, so the Department of Commerce has some jurisdiction. When it comes to wages and stuff, the Department of Labor and Industry has some jurisdiction. But the only people who go to court on behalf of the people of the state of Minnesota is the Minnesota Attorney General's office.
The reason I'm asking this is you've announced a CenturyLink settlement, which is kind of similar behavior, right?
Yeah, but Century was probably way worse, and there was not a federal settlement in the CenturyLink one that we're now building on in the Comcast one. So there are some differences, but I take your point.
The reason I'm asking is this a broader problem that needs to be addressed with a look at legislation by lawmakers?
Yes, absolutely yes. I mean, the bottom line is that, we've lived under 40, 50 years where there's a prevailing ideology that business is self-regulating. It's not. We've got to make sure that there is a watchdog, a regulator, somebody minding the store, a cop walking the beat, to make sure that everybody does what they're supposed to do. So I think that we do have pretty good consumer laws, but we are in constant conversation with our legislative partners to make sure that we are addressing the latest trick, the latest scam, the latest, slick thing. Because one thing about scammers, they're innovative. They're always coming up with some new thing to take money away from you. And in my view, how is it that we arrived at some of the worst income inequality in our country's history, certainly the worst since the Great Depression? These incremental encroachments and grabs on the pocketbooks of working middle-class Americans. These just nickel dime, 5 here, 10 there, 12 there, 13 there, and end up being like the end of the year that you're thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars poorer than you would have been or should have been. And so we believe this is part, when we say, look, we're in the business of helping people afford their lives, this is exactly what we're talking about. So thank you for asking. Anything else?
Expect to see additional settlements like the two we've seen the past week?
Yes, absolutely. We settle cases all the time. Some of them are bigger than others. Some of them warrant more press attention than others. CenturyLink and Comcast are extremely well known. Their nefarious behavior is well known. So we thought it would be important to come to you this way. But, if we announced every settlement that we do, we'd have y'all in here every single day. So we save the big ones, right? But look, the bottom line is we view obtaining compliant behavior from industry as our primary goal. Compliant behavior. We're not looking for a lawsuit. We're looking at compliant behavior with the law. And we hope that through communication like this, other companies will get the message that the Attorney General is not going to allow that. So we shouldn't do it if we don't want business with them. And so thank you for being here too.
Mr. Attorney General, just one final, if I may. You said your biggest fear was, I think I'm kind of paraphrasing, the people falling through the cracks.
Right.
There's folks who are owed some refunds, maybe don't get them.
Right.
I understand that you're limited in terms of how much of that you can dig out. But do you have any feel for how many folks potentially beyond the 15,000 and the 16,000 is it thousands that potentially should maybe contact you with information about this?
I'd say the answer to that is yes, but I also have a fear of, people like Gail. I mean, the losses that she suffered as a result of what Comcast did exceed the amount of the that was it an early termination fee that they hit you for? Look, when you put together the cost of $17,000 for 4 months, minus what her mortgage would have been, that's a lot of money that they took from her. And there are people who, there's the other costs incurred because Comcast injured them financially. And that is a big concern for me. So you want to elaborate on this at all, Catherine?
May I just
Yeah.
represent, do these folks, like Gail, have legal recourse? Obviously, it would be civil action, I would assume.
Yeah.
Or would there be a criminal action in conjunction with that, where she might be able to recover some of that money? Would you have to sue Comcast?
We don't have criminal jurisdiction in this area. We can only criminally prosecute people for Medicaid fraud. Other than that, the county attorneys have to invite us in. So likely not criminal, but civil. There's still if Comcast doesn't tighten it up, and if they do new stuff, they're not in the clear on that, and they need to keep that in mind.
To answer your question.
Yeah, come on up here.
Sorry. For a consumer who finds that they've been ripped off and want to take recourse, you had mentioned, could they bring a lawsuit?
Yeah, for collateral damage, I guess, for lack of a better term.
That's what most people think. I'll just go to small claims court. I'll sue them myself. Comcast includes in all of its service agreements arbitration clauses. So no Comcast customer, Comcast position is can sue in court. That's why it's so important that regulators then take over, because consumers are hindered from enforcing their rights in court.
Because we're not party to that agreement which mandates arbitration. So.
Great. Anything else? Thank you. I have a question actually.
Yeah.
So it just came down that the judge in the Maryland federal case on refugee resettlement has granted temporary injunction on this. I wonder if you have any response.
Let me just say that I'm more than happy to talk about anything outside of Comcast, but I want to put a cap on the Comcast conversation first. Any Comcast related questions?
Sign me up.
All right, you bet. So look,
Me since 2009.
well, hey, you got some attorneys. So let me just say thank you for coming, members of the press, and now we're going to conclude the press conference on Comcast.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks again.
Great job.